Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this today's lecture series, the third lecture of this lecture series, being delivered by Dr. C.M. Nautiyal, and he will be speaking on the search for life beyond our abode. On behalf of VIT Bhopal, we welcome our today's distinguished speaker, Dr. Chandramohan Nautiyal. Yeah. So Dr. Chandramohan Nautiyal is Program Consultant Science Communication with Indian National Science Academy, New Delhi since 2018. Earlier, he headed that radio carbon laboratory at Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleo Sciences, Lucknow. He's a scientist with good standing in science and its communication both. Basically, a physicist, he completed BSc followed by MSc in physics from IIT Roorkee. He pursued doctoral and postdoctoral research at Physical Research Laboratory, Ahmedabad. A recipient of several scholarships, he also availed INSA DFG fellowship to be at Max Planck Institute in Heidelberg and Mainz during 1989 to 90. Dr. Nautiyal specialized in measurement of noble gas isotopes and radiocarbon measurements and applied them to the studies of solar, planetary, and climate change studies. He was a scientific collaborator in a project for NASA's lunar sample studies. He has contributed 70 papers, 60 abstracts, 80 popular science articles, etc. He has co-authored so many books as well. He has been a motivator, science communicator. He has wrote so many TV and radio scripts of the TV radio shows. He has been reviewer for many publications and the research journals. He is a recipient of INSA Medal for Young Scientists in 1988, Consultancy Medal for BSIP Lucknow. Now, with all these academic and other achievements, he has also been an integral part of the science popularization and communication scenario of the country. He was associated as a live commentator for the first ever live telecast of the total solar eclipse on national channel in 1995. He was coordinator of National General Science Academy in 2002. At present, Dr. Nautiyal is with INSA, but he also contributes to be active in research, lecturing, science writing, broadcasting, organizing at many platforms. With this, I again welcome Dr. Nautiyal to this forum. It's over to you, sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Tripathi, again. We'll be talking today about a subject which feels to be very exciting. This is about life on places other than Earth. We all know that life has been on Earth for the past 3.8 billion years or so. But still, we haven't found a single evidence of life on any place other than Earth. Of course, the places which we people, the humanity has visited have been very limited. Man has been to moon. They are trying to reach Mars, but only 5 rovers have so far landed on Mars, and no human being has ever stepped on Mars. I'll be sharing with you a PPT, and using that, I will, in the next 60 minutes or so, I'll be telling you a little bit about, just a second, I think it will, I'll have to again open that PPT and then. So there are limited places where man has been able to go. And now with this PPT, I will try to, I'm not able to, connect. Are you able to see the video? I don't think.
No, sir. The screen sharing.
No, I think I am disconnected or what?
No, you are connected, sir.
Connected.
Share screen only, yeah. Are you able to do it?
No. How do I'll connect again, I guess there's some problem. Yeah, I'll connect.
You can try, sir, once more. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll try to connect.
Just share the screen again.
Yeah. Are you able to see me now?
No, I can see you, but your screen is not coming.
Yeah, screen will come now.
Yeah, now it is working.
Now it's working.
Yeah, you can open your presentation, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll start from the start again. We are talking about life beyond our planet Earth. There have been very limited places which man has visited so far. And as you know, that this is the right time to talk about it because man has just landed, well, the rover sent by us has landed on Mars just 2 days ago. Carl Sagan, the famous planetary scientist, has said, "Who are we? We find that we live on an insignificant planet of a humdrum star, lost in a galaxy tucked away in some forgotten corner of a universe in which there are far more galaxies than people." And this is really very true. We are an insignificant entity like a dirt in this universe. Von Braun had said, "Our sun is one of the 100 billion or so stars in our galaxy, and our galaxy is one of the billions of galaxies populating the universe. It would be the height of presumption to think that we are the only living things in this enormous immensity." Before Christ, 500 years before him, Socrates has also said, "Humanity must rise above the earth, to the top of the atmosphere and beyond, for only then we'll be fully understanding the world in which we live." Very wise words, because man has been able to look at Earth from a different perspective after rockets and aeroplanes and satellites were invented. Today, we are at a very interesting turn in the humankind. The rover has landed 2 days back on the surface of Mars. This is the fifth in the series, and literally, this has required a spirit, curiosity, opportunity, and perseverance. Perseverance is what we have on Mars right now. It was successfully landed there. The scope of this lecture is we'll talk a little bit what we mean by life. What are the forms of life on Earth? What are the prerequisites for life to begin and survive? And exploring the possible abodes of life in the solar system and elsewhere. We will also talk about a little the origins of life, the unusual life forms and situations, Indian efforts in space so far, and what. The first question is, what is life? Life is an organismic state characterized by capacity for metabolism, growth, reaction to stimuli, and reproduction. Whenever somebody says, and we have to fix a criterion, whether something is alive or not, these are the questions which we ask. Does it have metabolism? Does it grow, or is it static? Does it react to any stimulus? And does it reproduce? That is, does it multiply? And as we will see in the course of the lecture, even these are not the perfect criteria for deciding whether something is alive. Life is usually today very complex. There are simpler forms of life, such as bacteria. There is a very complex form of life, which is actually very simple. It's the virus, which is dead as long as it's independent, but it starts multiplying itself once it has entered the cell of the host. And this is what the coronavirus or SARS-CoV-2, which we are facing today. The life, the living object should have an ability to take energy from the environment, and at that cost, then it grows and then it multiplies. Whenever there is an hurdle in the way of a moving object, it responds to that. So responding to the stimulation as a reaction like motion, etc., is also a property of a living thing. Reproduction, as we know, one generation passes its genes to the next generation and so on, and it gives birth to something which is similar to them. To grow and develop, consume, change biomass, create new individual, and the shedding of waste, the metabolism, these are some of the things which characterize. But then, if you really look at them, is crystal which grows alive? It is not. Another question comes is, whenever we talk of life, we always think in terms of life based on carbon, which is a tetravalent thing, which can be found as gas, as CO or CO2, which can be found as liquid, for example, liquid H2CO3, and also as solid as graphite or other forms of carbon, even as a diamond. But then life does not have to be necessarily carbon-based. It can be silicon-based, somebody said. But as somebody pointed out very interestingly, they said when our spacecrafts landed on extraterrestrial bodies like Moon or Mars, they did not encounter anything, whether made of carbon or made of silicon. But then, if we think in terms of these criteria, is robo alive? It is not. It reacts, it requires energy for survival and so on, but this is not living. Fire is not living, even though it consumes something, generates energy, and it grows at the cost of that material. It is not living. So life is very difficult to define. But somehow, about 3.8 billion years ago, we had life on Earth. We don't know whether it came in a piece of a cometary nucleus, whether it came inside the solid body of a meteorite which survived the atmospheric abrasion and atmospheric burning. We don't know. We don't know whether it's originated and developed on Earth. These questions are still unanswered. But the reason why life could survive on Earth are clear. Life, as we know it now, was possible on Earth because we had water, and inside the water there were places which were protected from the harmful ultraviolet radiation coming from the sun and elsewhere. Many people now believe that the water was necessary, but life originated not in the depths of the ocean, but perhaps in shallow water. Earth was massive. It could hold atmosphere because of gravity, which contained oxygen, necessary for us, and it contained carbon dioxide, which is essentially for the plants. Then Earth has got a feeble but a magnetic field, which meant it could stop the cosmic rays from hitting the Earth's surface, and these energetic radiations could not damage the nascent forms of life on Earth. The distance from the sun of Earth is just right so that water can be found here as solid, liquid, which is water, and also as gas, which is water vapor. Liquid form facilitates chemical reactions. We have a rotating Earth, but rotating at a rate which makes life stable. It does not throw off things off its body. At 1 astronomical unit, which is the distance by definition between Earth and Sun, we are at the right place where the temperature is tolerable. In most of the places, or at least there are some places where the temperature is tolerable, which is not the case with the planets which are far away from the sun, such as Uranus, Neptune, or Saturn, or which are too close to the sun, such as Mercury and Venus. Water allowed rains, and these rains made it possible that whatever acidic or toxic components were there in the atmosphere were washed down. And this did not happen in case of a planet like Venus, it happened in case of Earth. Carbon dioxide was washed down. It later got deposited as carbonate, and most of it went into the ocean. Then we have so many elements which are essential, such as phosphorus, such as iron, such as carbon, such as oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, that are essential to make human or animal bodies. Origin of life, we still don't understand. In fact, nobody talks of origin of life. People talk about origins of life, which means more than one origin is possible. Maybe life originated on Earth. Maybe it was transported from some other planet from a faraway place hidden inside a meteoritic piece, as I said, or inside the cometary nucleus. We don't know. But if there is life in other places, why don't we see? We have never seen. There have been strange and stray cases where people have reported having looked at some things coming from the outer space, but there is no reliable or authentic description of them. Now, Carl Sagan had said that civilizations either became spacefaring or extinct, which means if there are civilizations, they should have perhaps traveled to Earth. But if you look at the interstellar distances, the distances are very large. The size of our galaxy is something like 1 lakh light years, which means if someone starts at one end of our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, it will take 100,000 years to cross that galaxy. What talk of anybody coming from some other galaxy to our solar system? But then it's possible that there are life forms, but they are not advanced enough and they cannot reach us. Maybe there are life forms, but we don't interest them at all because we are not progressive enough. We are not developed enough for them. Just like we don't take much interest in the life of small insects or bacteria or ants. Also, it's possible that we are not just capable of detecting signals which they may be sending, or maybe they are just not there. There are many names for the science which deals with life other than on Earth: biology, extraterrestrial life, astrobiology, bioastronomy. And there are a lot of people who are working with them, and their background varies from physics to geophysics to astrophysics to geology, chemistry, geochemistry, botany, biochemistry, and so on. But as of now, nobody has seen a life form which came from some other place. There have been some doubts, for example, in the South America, in one place, a strange body was found. It was a very short height, maybe 1.5 feet or so. But then it turned out that that was because of some disease, and DNA testing proved that it was a human being. If you look at our literature, we would know that humankind has always been curious to know if there has been life on some other planet near some other star. But there is no positive evidence so far. But then Drake was an astronomer who tried to show mathematically that there is non-zero probability of finding life in some other place. He gave a very simple empirical relationship like this. He said, if n is a number of civilization in our Milky Way galaxy, then the number of those civilizations can be estimated by multiplying all these factors, or their probability, you could say. NS is a number of stars in the Milky Way. FP is a fraction of those stars where human beings can survive, that is, which are habitable planets where temperature and conditions are right. Then you multiply it by FL. This is the fraction of the life-bearing planets where intelligent civilization is possible. And then you multiply it by LC upon LS, where LC is the typical lifetime of a civilization, and LC is the typical lifetime of the stars in billions of years. Well, just to give you an idea that if we have stars where there are planets, if we have planets where conditions are favorable, if we have conditions favorable to life, then life can grow, and if it can survive, and if it can acquire intelligence, then there is a possibility that sometime they will grow and try sending signals to us. And those are the signals for which humankind is. But the famous physicist Enrico Fermi had said, why we haven't already encountered extraterrestrial intelligence if it's common throughout the universe? A very valid question. Look at the huge distances. The nearest star to us is Sun. But other than that, the nearest star is more than 4 light years away. And we know that it's very difficult to travel at very high speeds, speeds which are close to light. Because at the speed of light, the mass of the material has to become zero. And you can never travel at a speed or velocity faster than light. Kepler said that if they were there, that is the extraterrestrial civilizations, if they were there, we would have seen them. Carl Sagan and William Stein Newman had said, such advanced forms would have destroyed themselves by nuclear warfare or biological warfare or in other such destructive methods, just like we are seeing today on Earth. if there is a nuclear warfare, whole life forms on Earth may be wiped. So maybe they were civilization, but they finished themselves. But then how life could have come on Earth? There was a very interesting experiments conducted in 1950s by Miller at Chicago University. He made a mixture of water, ammonia, methane, nitrogen, etc. And then he created an electrical spark, and he found that he could form amino acids using this reaction. Now, amino acids, as we know, they are what form protein, which is so much necessary for the life form. So he said that this kind of compounds can be formed from inorganic material using natural reactions or natural. So maybe this is how protein was generated, but still there is no final verdict on that. What are the prerequisites for life? We should have the essential raw material like carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, iron, phosphorus, and so on. There should be a stable landmass where life forms can live. But of course, Sagan said, what is wrong with clouds? And in fact, there is a science fiction by name Black Cloud written by Fred Hoyle. Then the life form should have production from ultraviolet radiation, which is possible if the life is born underwater. They should be protected from the cosmic rays, which is possible by the magnetic field, such as on Earth. They should be protected from the solid bombardment, which is possible if we have an atmosphere. And similarly, if there are other things coming from the outer space, they should be protected against. They have the necessary elements to build the skeletons of life. Let us think in terms of other planets. Mars has always been a favorite of the science fiction writers, of the scientists, and the common people. This possibly may be because of its reddish color, which makes it very special in the night sky. People thought that there could be life on Mars, and there were several reasons for that. In fact, Schiaparelli in Italy, in a place, Milan, he mentioned that there were canali on Mars. What he means by canali was channels. But when people translated it into English language, they thought that it was canals, which means neher or canals, artificial things, water bodies created from the rivers and all. And then this started a long romantic story on Earth about there being life on the planet. Then a rich businessman, Lowell, he made an observatory in Boston, and he started very systematically studying the surface of Mars. This gave people an impression that there could be life on Mars. And then some other interesting things happened about which I will talk. But let us think in terms of other planets also. Pluto is out of the planet fraternity. We have one less for company. But let us start from our moon, which is the closest celestial body to Earth. This is about 4,000 kilometers in radius. This is about 4.4 billion years old. But until now, people had believed that this has no water. But the Chandrayaan mission has established that moon has water, perhaps in the frozen form on its poles, and in the subsurface area, it has water, because when the moon impact probe was launched, it impacted and ejected some material, and it was spectroscopically studied, and evidence of OH minus was found there. Now people believe that there is water on moon, even if not as lakes or rivers on its surface. But still, there has been no evidence, but there could also be water in the crevices, cracks on the lunar surface. The first planet, as we move away from the sun, is Mercury. Almost like moon in size, but the day and night temperature has tremendous variation. The daytime temperature can be more than 460 degrees Celsius, and the nighttime temperature can go almost 200 degrees Celsius below zero. In conditions for any form of life. Look at Venus. Venus is in some respects similar to Earth, but this is so close to sun that the temperature during daytime is 450 degrees Celsius. But during the night time also the temperature is very high because this has atmosphere which is full of acids, carbon dioxide, ammonia, and such gases which absorb heat during the daytime, and they also absorb heat if it tries to escape during the night time. This does have solid ground, also has some mountains, but these conditions like 450 degrees Celsius temperature and toxic gases there are unlikely to allow the known forms of life on it. Then we have Jupiter, a huge one, which is more than 300 times bigger than Earth. But even there, we have gases, we have such material which may not allow life form. It has many satellites. One of them is Europa, the fourth one at the right. And Europa has a surface which is very strange. It shows evidence as if there is some kind of tectonic movement there. And people believe that there could be lakes or oceans under its surface. Uranus is the third largest planet in the solar system, but again, it's rich in hydrogen and such gases. It's more than 50,000 kilometers. It rolls. It does not rotate, it rolls. And the ring side view of Jupiter is like this. Then, if you go to Saturn, a planet which is quite mysterious, which is very huge, which has rings, and a hydrogen probe was sent there, and it was dropped on its satellite, and it found that there were rains, but rains of methane, not of water. So these are the conditions at Titan, a planet, satellite of the planet Saturn. So it's artist imagination. It has a landscape. It's rugged, but we don't expect life there. And if you go to Uranus and Neptune, these are planets where we don't expect life because of their conditions. They are huge, but they don't have anything which would support life. The moon of Saturn has the moon of Saturn is the Enceladus. Its lower half is sending out spray of stony, of icy water. Sometimes it's warm, and which gives an indication that there is some source of heat inside it. It's very small, 500 kilometers. One doesn't know whether this small body can survive, can give support to life or not. But this is the brightest satellite in the solar system. Nanoparticles are being emanated from its lower half, and they appear as jets when we look at it against. But even though we don't have material from any other planet, we have material from 400 kilograms of material from the moon, but not from any other planets. But even before man landed on moon in 1969, and even before it brought the solid material, soils and rocks, there we did have extraterrestrial material available with the humankind. This is a house of a person, an Indian, Mr. Nageshwar, in Freehold Town in New Jersey, in USA, where a meteorite broke the surface and landed in his house. In USA, there are cases where a meteorite hit the letterbox. In Egypt, 616 years before Christ, it broke a chariot. It killed a dog in Egypt in 1911. And there was one meteorite which fell in Japan and damaged an AC, but they have rarely harmed any human being. They are fairly harmless thing. There is only one case where a woman's arm was damaged by one meteorite, but otherwise they have been totally harmless. Even though they can be very huge, they can be as big as meters, they can be as heavy as several tons. In fact, in India, one meteorite fell, which was almost totally made of nickel and iron, and Jahangir made a sword out of it. And in his book, he has written that this was one of the most flexible and best swords he ever had. So meteorites do fall on Earth, and inside them forms of life can come. This is a huge meteorite. This is more than 2 meters big, and there are other, but then they cannot be coming from a single source. Earlier, people believed that meteorites were coming to Earth only from the asteroidal belt, which is a belt of solid bodies between Mars and Jupiter. But gradually, when these rocks or these meteorites were recovered from Earth's surface, and they were studied in the laboratory, people began to realize that they are not like the material expected between Mars and Jupiter. They are asteroids. They may be coming from asteroidal belt, but they could also be coming from the nucleus of comets. Comets are the periodic visitors to our Earth, which we can sometimes see with naked eye, because due to evaporation, when they're close to sun, they can develop tails. Those could be millions of kilometers long. For example, Halley's comet, which visits every 85 years. There have been some other like comet Kotik and others. But then two special varieties of these meteorites were found on Earth, also from the polar area, and they resemble the rocks from Moon and rocks from Mars. There are 30 samples recovered on Earth, which you can see here. They are known as Snc Meteorites, and they are believed to have come from Mars. And there are several scientific reasons why people think that they may be coming from Mars. Their formation age is very young, something like 1.4 billion years. Now, we know that many of these planets are geologically dead. They were dead long ago. So if you find something which is as young as this, then there is a possibility that this body may be coming from Mars. Their argon isotopic ratios, their xenon isotopic ratios, their ratios for other elements in the atmosphere, they indicate that they may be coming from Mars, because Viking has measured the atmosphere of Mars. They are rich in the nitrogen 14 isotope. They are also rich in carbon dioxide concentration, which again indicates that these bodies may be coming from the planet Mars. It means even though we haven't had any sample for Mars, but we still have some material already which reached Earth, and they were coming from Mars. The fifth rover, which is now on the surface of Mars and moving there, Perseverance, it will not bring any samples back, because this doesn't have any rockets to bring it back to us. It will be living on that surface only, maybe for many years, but it will identify places, it will analyze the rocks, perhaps even the soil, and it will send back us messages which are the places suitable for the sample collection. And next time another rover would be sent, which will go to those sites, collect the samples, and bring them back to Earth for analysis in the lab. But why is Mars interesting? I'll tell you a little bit about the history. You see a figure of 8 with a big circle and a small circle. This is about 3 kilometers and about 16, 17 kilometers. The one smaller one on the left is about 4 to 5 kilometers radius, and the bigger one has about 8 or 9 kilometers radius. Now, this figure of 8 this big is, people thought, made by some human, some kind of living things on the Mars. But then it was realized that this is created by glaciers. So this big 8 has been created by a glacier. You look at the small hill at the back, there is snow on top of that. When that snow melted, that came down and the small glacier was formed, and this made this circular figure here. And then it slowed down to a bit lower elevation, and it made this again big thing, which left a mark of this huge circle. These are past glaciers, and these are not drawn by any aliens on the surface of Mars. But when these figures were released, then people became very interested, and they thought that this may mean that there is life on Mars. And then in 1976, when Viking 1 was sent by NASA, it took the photograph from far away on the Martian surface, and it sent this face of human being on the Mars. This was about 2 kilometers or so inside. But when 25 years later or more, another photograph was taken, then it became clear that this was not a face of a human being. Instead, it was a geological formation on the surface of Mars, which was created because of molten lava. And depending upon from which angle you take the photograph, this appears as the face of a human being or otherwise. This is another photograph. It was taken later. It's about 3 kilometers in size. So people continued to hope that there was life on Mars, and we are able to see some evidences on the surface of Mars. But then this another photograph came. People believed that Mars cannot have water in any form. But these structures, these features, these streaks indicated these are very big. These are close to 100 meters. And these streaks, they're created perhaps by flowing water. And this is a signature of water on the surface of Mars. Even though we don't see water on the surface of Mars today, but perhaps on the pole, there is frozen ice there because sun rays don't reach there. These are the 5 rovers which have been sent by NASA. The first one was the Mars Pathfinder mission by the name Saturn. It landed on Mars in July 1997, and it was the first wheeled robo to rove the red planet. It was very slow. It was something like 0.02 miles per hour. It was very slow. It was moving very slow. It was very small. It was something like 10, 15 kilograms. That's all. And it has just 2 scientific instruments. But the next time they sent Opportunity and Spirit, 2 more rovers. They were pretty big, and they traveled at almost 4 times of its velocity. And they moved into the craters, came up the craters, and they photographed, they even analyzed rocks. Then one more rover was sent, Curiosity, 8 years after the 2004 rovers. And its purpose was to finding out if Mars had ever had water, what were the kind of rocks there. It even abraded some of the rocks, took their photographs, analyzed them, and it gave us some signal, and some very interesting results came from these rover, which I'll discuss later. This Perseverance is which just landed 2 days back on the surface of Mars. And one of its main goals is to look for evidence of any life or any past life on the surface. Now, when we say past life, it does not mean that they were huge creatures or intelligent creatures or people like us on the Mars. The life could have been even in the form of bacteria. So these are the 5 rovers. But what we learned earlier, when the Spirit and Opportunity, and later another rover was sent on the surface of Mars, it went inside a crater and looked at the wall of the crater. And if you look at these structures, you would know that this is what is made by water on Earth. So they concluded that this was a place where there was flowing water. There was steady water there long time, maybe billions of years ago. Now, if there is water, one hopes that there could have been life too. These are the structures similar to them we find on Earth. If there is a water somewhere and there are sediments, then sometimes the sedimentary material can accumulate around the nuclei. There were sand dunes seen on Mars, which is evidence of wind, just like in the smaller picture you see the terrestrial deserts. These are sand dunes found on Mars. There were streams of water. Of course, this is exaggerated a little bit. And this is left-hand side and right-hand side, both the pictures from Mars. And this is an evidence that water was flowing. There were water streams on the surface of Mars. One very strong geochemical evidence which was found on Mars, when the minerals were analyzed there by the rovers sent there, they found hematite, but they also found that there was a special mineral by name goethite, which was detected on rocks there, one rock published there. And this has OH minus radical, which means this goethite on Earth, it looks like this mineral on the right. Presence of this mineral on rock was the clinching evidence that there was water sometime present on Mars. I won't go into the details of the formula, but this term called delta C13 gives you an idea of how rich a sample, organic material sample, is in carbon-13. So if this value is positive or negative, that gives us an indication whether this could be of biogenic origin or not. For example, on in terrestrial conditions, the plants can have values from -6 to -34 per mil. Well, some formula you take it like that. This gives you an indication whether this is from the bio origin or this is from inorganic origin. Another evidence of life that can be whether you have the gas methane on that planet or not. On Mars, methane has been found, which is close to 10 parts per billion, in some places as much as 40 parts per billion. But this is not sure whether this methane has come out from the interior of the planet Mars or this is because of the bioactivity. One thing is important, that methane cannot survive there for more than 300 or 400 years. It will escape. So this methane, which has been seen on Mars, cannot be very ancient. It must have been born during the last 300, 400 years, whether because of some bacteria or some life forms, or it has come from the Earth inside the planet. We do not know. And you must appreciate that animals and living beings like us on Earth produce methane in our metabolic process, for example, for digestion. But then there was one very interesting thing 25 years ago, when even the President Bill Clinton was seen on the television screen all over the world, because the scientists there claimed that in a rock, which was a meteorite, which was believed to have come from Mars and was recovered from Allen Hill in the Antarctica, this meteorite contained a structure, and that structure resembled the shape of a bacteria. It was photographed, it was analyzed, it was enlarged using microscopes, scanning electron microscope, and transmission electron microscope, and the feature was seen which appeared like bacteria, which you can see here in the center. There is something here which you see, a bacteria-like thing. But then people realized these bacteria were very much smaller than what we see on Earth. They were 10 times smaller than the terrestrial bacteria. Then they also suspected that these features could have been produced during the coating of this rock piece. But then they also found the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons in the sample. But then it was not established that they were from the Martian origin. They could have been a contamination in the Allen Hills or in the polar areas. So people then analyzed ultimately the carbon present there, and it did not turn out to be as if it was from the organic material. So the claim was dismissed. And as Carl Sagan said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. For the time being, the theory was dismissed, but the search is still on. And once we get the samples directly from Mars, perhaps better analysis would be possible. So we should be looking for life forms. But one difficulty is the life forms are always not easily seen by naked eye. For example, you see at the bottom some samples which are in the rocks. Some of them are real, some of them are not real. And even if we consider that they were of biogenic origin, unless we look for them, we will not see them. The life forms which we are trying to look for, either on the moon or in the planetary space or on the surface of Mars, we are trying to look for something which resembles the living forms on Earth. It's not necessary that the life forms on other planets should be having 2 eyes or 1 nose or 2 ears or hair or head or ears or arms or legs or so on. And that is the life forms we are accustomed to. We are looking for water there, treating this as a precondition for life, but maybe the life forms on other planets don't require water, even though on Mars and Moon there is evidence of water now. We expect if there is vegetation, it should require photosynthesis and therefore sunlight. If there is not enough sunlight on a planetary surface, we don't expect life there. Then again, we could be wrong. We'd say we haven't received, in so many years of SETI, we have not received any radio signals from any other part of the galaxy, either ours or anywhere else, from any direction. But maybe they don't use radio waves. Maybe they're not dependent on electromagnetic radiations for sending signals to us. We say the life form is that which reproduces. By that condition, even a mule, which is a cross of horse and ass, a mule does not reproduce because of the problem with the number of chromosomes in the two types, horse and ass. They cannot reproduce, but they are living. So our definition of living thing is not very clear. Our definition of their shapes is not very clear. These are such unfamiliar things which we find on Earth. These are fossils of bacteria found in rocks in many countries. In Australia, 850 million years, that is 85 crore year old rock, contains this form of bacteria. In India, we have found evidence of bacteria in rocks which are something like 1.6 billion year old in Mysore. We expect that if there is a vegetation, the vegetation would be green in color. But maybe the vegetation on other planets does not photosynthesize. But how will they communicate? We are looking for some signal which will be very efficient, because the civilization would be intelligent and they would not like to waste any energy. So it should be in a narrow wavelength or in a narrow frequency range, not necessarily in the radio range. They should be strong enough as signal so that they rise above the background and we are able to detect. And this is possible if they are trying to communicate with us. What other features should they have? The signal should be steady. Signal should be confined to a narrow band at the spread of a few hertz. That is a few, the frequency should be not be changing too much. Signal should be from a fixed direction in sky, because the source would be only in a few places, cannot be everywhere else. The signals could be modulated if they're intelligent. The signals should be showing periodic Doppler shift if they're coming from a planet, because planet must be orbiting around some star. It means sometimes the planet is close to us, sometimes the planet is far away from us. So it's moving, is going away from us, then coming close to us. So there should be a Doppler shift. That frequency should show it. But then we haven't so far found this kind of signals. And second problem is, even the nearest star, if we leave out sun, the nearest star from us is more than 4 light years. So their communication, we should be able to understand. But what will they send? Maybe they will send us some mathematical signals. Maybe they will send us signals like beeps, which means one beep, ping, ping, maybe then 4 beeps, maybe then 8 beeps, maybe then 16 beeps, maybe then 32 beeps, and so on, which tells us that there is a mathematical order in the signals which they are sending. They may be sending us some picture in the form of binary codes, just as we do in the computer or in digital cameras. Maybe they are intelligent enough, using the artificial intelligence, using big data, they can analyze our language and will communicate to us in our own language. But then we should not be looking for their signals only in radio range. Maybe they are using some other range. One thing we should understand, that force of life is very strong. Life does not start only where things are most favorable. Life can start in very, very unfamiliar conditions, very unfriendly conditions, because there are insects found in the lakes and oceans at freezing temperature. Their blood does not freeze at those temperatures because they can produce a chemical, add that chemical to their blood so that it doesn't freeze. Just like we add defreezing agents to petroleum or diesel when we go to the high altitude. They make antifreeze compounds and add it to their blood. Sometimes they just go to sleep during the cold period and then wake up again. Polar fish are the most famous for making antifreeze proteins because they're very large and they can survive below the freezing point. And this is very common for them. So the insects sometimes master the art of living under very, very unfamiliar conditions. India has made some efforts. Professor J.V. Narlikar led a team which sent, in collaboration with other scientists, The balloons were sent up in the upper atmosphere, and air samples were collected from something like 41 kilometers altitude. They were brought back to Earth, where they found some bacteria which are not known on Earth. There was another meeting in 2016 to which I was also invited in Pune. Unfortunately, there has not been much progress to my knowledge after that. But the experiments have been tried, where people have tried to collect material from interplanetary space or in the upper atmosphere and try to look for bacteria present there. ISRO has been supporting these efforts. We should not be looking for only familiar forms of life. For example, under the ocean, where there is no oxygen, there is no light, these less than 1 millimeter size living things have been found, which are known as Loricifera, and people have analyzed them in the laboratory. These are some other very strange creatures. These are very shimmery, they are small, but when they turn at a particular angle, they just vanish because no light reflects from them. They have a chitin, a polymer kind of thing on their surface, which makes them vanish. They give different kind of colors. Then there are places on Earth in the polar areas, in Antarctica, for example, where from the depths of more than 3 kilometers, at 0.8 kilometer depth, at 3.4 kilometer depth, 3.7 kilometer depths from 3 Valence, Ellsworth, and Vostok Lake, samples have been connected. And when those samples were cultured, people could see bacteria there. There is a finite possibility that this bacteria actually were transported from somewhere else there with wind, or who knows, maybe even through water. So we are not sure that this is original life from there. But one thing is definite, that these bacteria can be cultured, and if life beings as a kind of survived there in very, very unfavorable conditions. 4,000 exoplanets have been found. There are Whale Galaxy, where an M dwarf star has been found, where the surface temperature is low. Even though the distance of a planet, there are 7 planets in fact, the distance of the planet from the star is low, and therefore the temperature on the planetary surface is very comfortable, because the surface temperature of a star is only 4,000 degrees Celsius and not 6,000 degrees Celsius. This is very far from us, something like 40 light years ago. Gives a lot of light. So this planet is 1.4 times bigger than Earth, but it's not so massive. The mass is very low. So habitable zone, habitable conditions, who knows, there could be life there. So the search for life is on. Satellites are looking for them. Rovers are looking for them. We are looking for them on Earth. But in any case, this is going to be a win-win situation, because if we find the extraterrestrial life, this is mission accomplished, mission successful. But if we don't find it, we can take pride in the fact that we are the only ones in this universe who are alive. Earth is a very unique planet that way. So the quest must continue. And as it said in the Puranas, Charabiti, Charabiti, Charabiti. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's over.
Yeah. 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 Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, sir. So we'll just start for the discussion, the forum. And thank you for this such a nice talk. So there is one question that is, what is the possibility of life existing outside the Earth?
Okay, this is what I discussed. If you really calculate, this is such a huge universe, so many galaxies, so many planetary systems, 4,000 exoplanets, as I said, and that we have found, the actual number would be much larger. So if there are planets which are at reasonable distance from their stars, The temperature there is right. There is water there. So there is a possibility and that there could be life. But it's just that we have not detected. And one more reason we don't see any evidence of life is the stars are so far from us that even if somebody started traveling from them thousands of years ago, they won't have reached us. So distance is one major problem. But now we are making faster and faster spacecraft. Or if some spacecraft started from those planets thousands of years ago, maybe they will be reaching Earth sometime. Let's wait for them. Yeah, you can read out the other questions. Can I read the questions? Yeah.
Yes. So there is another very basic question. Right now, everybody is thinking about the Mars, and this is from the curiosity of our audience, and they are asking that is it possible to habitat the Mars in future?
Yes, there is serious thinking going on. In fact, somebody jocularly said that there are a lot of industry on Earth which are polluting. Let us send them to Mars. Let them emit as much of carbon dioxide there as possible. And that way, Mars will also get a temporary atmosphere for some time. So there is a plan people are studying in the laboratory. If you can create some kind of a living canopy there, some kind of a enclosure on Mars, where, or even on Moon, where people could live with artificial support. Or maybe they could even extract water from the polar ice. They could extract a little air from the atmosphere. Maybe they will extract carbon dioxide from the 1% atmosphere of Mars, convert it into oxygen, and use that for breathing.
Okay, yeah. So probably they got this flavor basically how to what is going to happen in near future. So there is one more question with the same theme. Basically, you have answered the part of it. So they're asking whenever a rover is sent, we are always looking for the signature of water. So why is the search of water is so important?
Yes, I think this is a very, very valid question. And even scientists ask, but then you know that most of the life forms that we have seen on Earth are dependent on water. So water is considered. The second thing is water is liquid, and in many of the conditions, water can exist as solid, liquid, and gas. So it makes chemical reactions much easier. This being and maybe the first curiosity is, do we have any life forms like human beings or animals? And human beings or animals, we all require water for survival. Water is one of the things, and then we know how to detect water. We don't exactly know requirements of life of every other possible living thing.
Yeah. So there is one more question. Uh, so it is, from the fantasies of the students, they are asking whether some Nidhis has asked this question that sir, aliens are whether the aliens are there in our galaxy or not. Nidhishri has asked this very question.
Nobody has a clear answer. There have been several reports where people have said that they were even abducted by the aliens and dropped back after a few days or weeks. But there is no any authenticated account of that. Many people, there is an internet university bigger than VIT University. The internet university has a lot of evidence that there are aliens who visit Earth frequently. There have been reports of objects which have been cited by that is a UFO. UFO by definitions mean unidentified flying object. Any object, it could be a spy spacecraft, it could be a spy aeroplane of any country which nobody owns. If nobody owns this, then it can also be termed as UFO. But I, for my part, have watched two UFOs sometime around 1983 or 82 or so in Ahmedabad. One of them was perhaps a fireball. It moved across when we were going back to a lab after dinner, and another one was also around the same time, and it was sighted in sky. But there are no properly recorded things. Very often, when meteorites fall, people watch them, and since the time span of watching is very short, maybe a second, maybe a fraction of a second, maybe 1.5 seconds, sometimes people mistake them for spacecraft. Sometimes people watch something which is called maybe hallucination or maybe optical phenomena, and they think that they have really viewed something. There is no authenticated account any UFO watching.
Yeah. So the next question is from Ayush, and he's asking if the universe is capable of creating a planet like Earth, which has conditions for sustaining life. Is there any possibility that I mean some similar kind of uh, planets can be found somewhere in this universe?
Actually, as I told you, 4,000 exoplanets have been found. These are planets around other stars. On many of them, conditions have been found, as I showed you just now, this one star around which 7 planets have been found. And of these planets, those which are at a reasonable distance from the star, the temperature is okay. Actually, the temperature should have been too low because the surface temperature of that star is only 4,000 degrees Celsius. But in that case, the distance happened to be closer. Therefore, the surface temperature on the planet is reasonable. And in principle, this is habitable. Being habitable, the temperature should be right so that water can also survive. Distance should be right so that there is enough luminosity and not too much of burnout because of the radiation from the sun. And then it should not, the star should not be very young, because a young star emanates like a Habiaro object or a very young T-Tauri stage of the star. In the early stage, there are a lot of emissions. So if there is any life around that, that could be destroyed. But after some time, when the star settles down, the radiation is not so much. And at that time, if the temperature is right, if there could be water, if the planet is massive enough to hold on to an atmosphere, because you know that the escape velocity will depend upon the mass. Very small planet, any gas which it receives either in the form of comet or it comes from its interior, that will be lost to the space. So these are some of the parameters. So there are planets found by scientists where life are favorable for, conditions are favorable for.
Okay, so there is one question. Basically, it has been, I mean, it is that how does this Perseverance rover will be helpful towards understanding the Mars? So it's recently it is launched, so people are asking those questions from that as well.
Okay. On 22nd February, it landed there. And there is a lot of experience of previous 4 rovers with the scientists. What they had did in case of Spirit, Opportunity, and the subsequent rover was, they sent those rovers. That rover landed in a crater, Endurance crater, for example. It moved around. It looked at the wall of the crater and photographed it, so that we know whatever features we are seeing there are features of sedimentation. If you put some dust in a glass of water, it gradually settles down, and it settles down in layer. Similarly, on a planetary surface, if there is a water body and there is sediment coming from the catchment area, from the surrounding area, it comes and settles down. Whatever comes first is at the bottom. Whatever comes last is at the top. This way, they saw those features. So even in this case, it will be looking at those features. It can also, from a distance, it can analyze rocks and find out what are the minerals there. Those minerals will show whether there was water on Mars or not. It will show what all elements are there. And this tells us about the history of the rock, about the formation of the rock, similarly about water. And if we are lucky and we really find some moving animal there, that would be great. It reminds me of a joke that somebody said, if there is desert on Mars, there may be camels. And if there are camels, there should be flies. If there are flies, we should have a trap for flies. We should send a fly trap to the Mars. And if it comes back with fly, then we know that there is life on Mars. But these are some of the things which people would be studying there. Evidence of Mars, evidence for mineral, evidence for snow, and evidence for other elements. The air, different.
Yeah. So there is one more question. Uh, what are meteorites made of? Is there any meteorite made of any element which has not been found on Earth yet?
Okay, interesting question. You see, the meteorites in general, they can be of different types. They can be stony meteorites, which are like a rock. Now, concentration, mostly they're made of silicates, minerals like pyroxene, olivine, feldspar. But then there is one kind of meteorite which are known as iron meteorite. Those meteorites are 90% or more nickel and iron. They are very dense. Their density is almost close to 8, which is close to the iron density. And as I told you, that in India also one such meteorite was recovered during Jahangir's time, and he got it molten, and then he made a sword out of it. These huge nickel iron meteorites are so huge that in Africa there are places where they fell and they have never been moved from that place. They are still there, and the museums have been built around them. So these meteorites are rocks made of silicate material or of iron and nickel, or they can be in between. And there is one more type of meteorites which are called carbonaceous chondrites. These are believed to be early material, and even within them, there is a subclass which is known as C1 class of meteorite, carbonaceous chondrites. They have chondrules, and they have inside them evidence of some water and some carbon which is unoxidized, which means they were never heated beyond 100 degrees Celsius, like Murchison or Orwell. These are some of the meteorites which have carbon, and they perhaps represent the primitive material from the solar system. These are the things which meteorites are made of.
So there is one more question, sir, that if Mars has very low level of oxygen and thus it cannot ignite fire, then how did the rocket ignite during the landing of the rovers?
They carry the fuel with them. Everything which is required for running the rocket, that is carried with them. So they carry just solid state propellants, and they are used for firing the rockets.
Okay, so there is one more question. It is probably from this fantasies and so many. The Carl Sagan, he's the writer. He's been writing so many things on the science. So this one question has come that if the idea of the gold, he has sent the golden record with Voyager 1 for the aliens to catch that spacecraft and listen to the sound of humans' music to crack the cosmic address of Earth. How did we assume that there can be an intelligent species so developed to patrol interstellar space and catch that spacecraft?
Well,
So it's the question is from fictions. So they are asking,
yes,
they are
yes.
trying to relate with it.
Yeah, actually, even when some aircraft was sent from Earth, I think Voyager, it carried the images of human beings there. Now, as far as the music or sound is concerned, I'm sure if there is some intelligent civilization, they would be able to decode whatever is sent to them. I'm sure that the music has been sent maybe in the binary forms or in some kind of electronic form. So this is an assumption. Nobody can say for sure that they would be able to listen to our music, least of all whether they would enjoy it or not. So I don't think this question can be really.
So there is one more question, sir, because it have been basically it has been coined as an ethical question to the scientific community because a lot of money and budget is being invested for different kind of explorations. So this question has come from Nidhishri Nishtha, and she's asking that it is necessary to spend these huge sums of money on a space exploration, and when there are still a lot of social challenges unresolved.
These social challenges existed when the satellites were launched. If today we are able to talk to each other, we are able to communicate to each other, this is because there are satellites. This is because of communication. Vikram Sarabhai has said that if we don't do it, if we are late, then the future generation will ask us, why we didn't do it earlier. Whatever we do today, even if some patient is sick and the doctor is not able to reach there, from thousands of kilometers using this video conferencing, the doctor can tell the nurses there how to carry out the operation. So these problems of hunger and poverty and shortage of material will always remain. But we always have to keep attention to everything. And even today, for example, many of the things which we are able to do for the poor, the handicapped, this is because we did satellites, because we did space science. Many of these things are helping. Then there is something called a direct work, like a rocket or a spacecraft or a satellite. But there are what we call spin-offs. Spin-offs is something in the process of developing this technology, we develop things which are later useful for the society. I'll give you one very critical example. For missile, a special alloy was developed by India. And that alloy was used because it was made to make the body of the missile. Defense technology, you could say, space technology. But the same material was used on the suggestion of Dr. Kalam. Same material was used for making crutches for those who cannot walk because of polio. Many of the technologies which are being used in industries now have been developed by NASA, and then they were transported to industry, and they were developed.
With this, that was the final last question, sir. So with this, we'll just end today's session and the discussion. And once again, on behalf of VIT Bhopal University, I'll thank you so much for giving us your precious time. And it was nice interaction. Hopefully, the students have enjoyed a lot with this discussion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.